hello.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm having a spectacular day.
Oh,
Um,
good.
yeah, you look so different without your bandana.
Yeah, sorry about that. I can hide part of my head. Um, how does my audio sound? Is
You're
that
perfect. You're
okay?
wonderful. Yeah.
Great.
How about me on your side?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Yes.
Good. Well, we'll start now, I guess. This is Snackable Mental Health. Today I've got David Sheffield, and I've got two bios, one written by him and one written by somebody else about him. And they're both really beautiful stories to start off our conversation. David Sheffield is an artist and oral historian working at the intersections of storytelling, memory, landscape, and lived experience. His practice has been shaped by the vibrant communities of artists and writers in Northumberland County, Ontario, where he makes his home. Living aside people whose lives have been marked by poverty and systemic injustice, David has expanded and redefined his understanding of what it means to be a neighbor. Through his work, David aims to evoke shared experiences of belonging, transformation, and restoration, inviting others to consider how stories can reconnect us to one another and to the landscapes we call home. I think that's absolutely beautiful. It's
Thanks.
yeah, it's one of the most bang on bios I've read actually. And you are among, I believe we're getting into my dozenth interview. So I'm getting a little bit better at what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And I'm very happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, so happy to be here, Brandon. I enjoy chatting, especially chatting one to one with people, and so that's ideal for a podcast conversation like this.
That's wonderful. And as we call it, snackable mental health, I'll have you for between 20 and 45 minutes. Depends on how long the meal is.
Yeah, I can pack a lot of snacking into that time slot. So
Absolutely.
let's give it a go.
When did you first realize that stories could change how a community sees itself?
That's a good question. I've I've been interested in storytelling for a long time from a variety of perspectives, and I think it really just comes from curiosity. Um, Probably 20 years ago or so, I started kind of working with folks that were marginalized in the community as a volunteer first, and then the last 15 years with Greenwood Coalition. So I think probably it starts with me hearing a story from a person that's been part of my growth, part of my understanding
Understanding
of
of
people who
people.
have had a different experience than I've had, and I know how that's been transformative for me, being involved in that community. And then we would share stories because I always felt like if other people could hear the stories that I'm living through in the way that I hear them, that
Yes,
would change them. And so how do I get that story to other folks? And over the years, been a variety of ways that I've been involved with. We used to do the Community 101 conversations in with Greenwood Coalition, and also the Imaginate events that were very much storytelling, helping people to have access to a different experience than they've had.
that's incredible. Maybe could you explain Greenwood Coalition briefly?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I've made a couple of references. So Greenwood Coalition is a small community organization that operates in Northumberland County. Started in Port Hope, and was in the beginning was really rooted in the community that lived at the Greenwood Tower Motel, and it had become, in the by the 2006 or so, when folks started hanging around there, it had become a residential motel, pretty run down. And if you think about encampments today, that was essentially the encampment of its day. There was mostly a roof over people's heads, but people
That's
would
all it
crash there.
was.
Yeah, yeah, there'd be 30 rooms or so, but there'd be 80 people living there and crashing on somebody else's floor. and that kind of. So if you had nowhere else to go, you would go there, and it was sort of seen as a dangerous place, or the same kinds of things that people say about encampments today. They were saying about that community, and so we just went there and spent time there, and that's where Greenwood Coalition sort of came up, and over the years we've put a lot of focus on healing in different ways, healing through art, through gardening, through just making connections across the community. We had for 13 years we ran a community dinner in Port Hope, and
Nice.
we sat down and ate with people, whatever our background was, and there'd be 90 or 100 people there. Some people because they didn't have money to buy a meal, some people because they thought they were going to help and they got help by being there, and just that whole cross section of community. Build something very different than a charity model, and so that's kind of the roots of Greenwood Coalition. And today there's a location in Port Hope and one in downtown Coburg, and food and art are very key to the healing recovery process for all of us that show up.
David, do you have any type of answer for the unhoused situation in Northumberland County?
I would say that as day by day, I have fewer and fewer answers.
I understand.
I think it's sort of like what they say about planting trees. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago or 50 years ago. The second best time is today, and with housing, which is kind of at the core of the crisis that we're experiencing. That's
We're
something.
not alone. We're not alone as a region or as a county. This seems to be spread all over the map.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of contention about this, in Coburg particularly, but in Northumberland County. But we've got a systemic difficulty here that we see across the country. I mean, we see in other countries, and so you can't look at a person who's homeless in Coburg and blame them for what's going on. The shifts in real estate, the shifts in wealth. I mean, we have some people who are wealthier than we could have ever imagined, even 10 or 20 years ago, and we sort of an acceptable level of poverty that has.
Acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bothering people that we have more and more people who are living on what won't house them or won't feed them, and so we've got. I mean, some people call it a poly crisis of housing. The changes in drug use patterns and drug supply and mental health, and you put all of those things together, expose people to the elements, and we've got a very difficult situation that we should have been fixing 20 years ago. I mean, all the systems that are in place were there, and we've created this. This isn't a failure of systems. This is the
Like,
natural
yeah.
outcome of what we created.
Speaking on from experience, I am what you would call, I don't know, some kind, I don't know if you'd call it a success story or not, but I was, I guess you could call it about 20 years ago, very close to becoming unhoused and very close to being somebody that relied on that. And it irks me whenever I see it. I'm like, I was very close to being there. And I don't even know, like, even 20 years later, like you just said, is what the solution was, other than me just getting really lucky. And I'm not talking about lucky with money, but lucky with the people who I knew and getting me out of that circumstance. So I'm very aware of this, but I can't seem to find it. Even thinking about it, I can't seem to find an answer for the why, the how, and and how this is all playing out. Other than I just got lucky, And
Yeah,
now
yeah.
you're on my show, and now we're talking about it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, lucky is a good way to describe it. I think if we take that apart a little bit, a little earlier this year, yeah, I guess a spring issue of Watershed magazine, I did an article that was about healing through community, and so I interviewed three people who had all had significant mental illness experiences, and all were at some point of recovery and healing, and we talked about what that pattern looked like for people who had serious mental illness, and so I what I observed was that well, the way I described it to myself first and then kind of fed it back to folks was the house was on fire for folks. Things were in a very bad state, and the fire needed to be put out, and so you call the fire department. And so in the case of those three people who have experienced some success, they all got connected with a medical system in some fashion that assisted them to stabilize their life. So typically some kind of medication, some period of hospitalization, that kind of thing that allowed them to essentially put the fire out. What's missing is that the fire department doesn't rebuild houses, and people needed to rebuild their lives following the
Write
fire.
that down.
Yeah, you can write that
The
down.
fire department doesn't rebuild your house.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and some of the systems, they would like us to think that they're solving things, but they're doing that first piece of putting out the fire. And in the case of all of those individuals, and lots of other cases that I've seen over time, people talk about if they've seen substantial recovery from mental health crisis, or addiction, etc., it's because of what you described as the community support, that they found their way into community. Sometimes it's family and other folks that support you through that rebuilding. You have to figure out, how do I go out in public again? How do I interact? If I'm leaving behind some relationships, what are the new relationships that come in? And for some folks, that's really difficult. It's hard to do. And I think that's where some of the success of an organization like Greenwood Coalition and others in the community that are very grassroots, they've figured out how to do that. We're going to eat with people, we're going to make art with people, we're going to, start those relationships that need to be part of rebuilding that house that was on fire.
That's definitely a metaphor that you can take with you after hearing this talk. Is yeah, your house isn't rebuilt by the fire department. Um, how do you handle the emotional hangover after collectively heavy and painful stories? Like, what's your what do you take, like, when you take away such a tragic story that, and many of us have known people or been through it themselves, but how do you handle the emotional hangover or the possibility of burnout from all these stories, David?
Yeah, so that's a layered question, and I would say first of all, I'll start with your last comment about how do you avoid burnout. I've never felt burned out from someone
Awesome.
sharing their difficult story. If I felt burned out, it's because the help is not available, the systems are not functioning. That's where the burnout comes from, knowing that there's a better way to do this. This doesn't have to be this hard for this person. Why do we have these
Yeah.
obstacles? That's where the burnout comes. The sharing stories of difficult things, of what people are going through. Is I mean, you learn sort of how much to carry. I mean, one of the things that's helpful to somebody who's helping out is recognize that this person has a lot of resilience, and just because they're telling me their story doesn't mean I need to fix their whole life and go from there. I've come to understand that the listening is a valuable service for folks, and so making sure that I'm paying attention. If I have a suggestion of a solution, I'll offer that. But and so the other thing I'll throw in there, we're making this sound like every conversation is going to be a sad one. My experience working.
That's not true. Yeah, that's
That's
right.
not
Yeah.
true. That's not true. The where was my thought going? Um, as we're having conversations with folks, especially, and we can do this more easily in a community organization or grassroots work, the way that I've done this, or just as a community member, connecting with folks. You can have those conversations that include the funny stuff, that include, you can cry with people, and another time you
It's
can
not
laugh with
all,
them.
yeah, it's not
Yeah,
all, yeah, it's not all bad stuff. It's actually,
absolutely.
there's a lot of enriching things that can happen with somebody who's involved with on the on your angle.
Yeah, absolutely. And to see people as a whole person like that, I don't sit down with somebody and think, oh, this is a case of something, or this person is a problem. No, this person is a person, and as they say, we all have a universe within us,
That's
and
right.
we're carrying these things, and let's say and see what I can learn. I mean, I don't know, I don't have that many. I have fewer answers than ever now.
Well,
Um,
I mean, like, yeah, like, why do people continue to be first responders, or why do people find a career in the emergency room? It can't be always bad. It can't always be bad, and so I guess some of that good stuff you take with you keeps you going in that environment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's this storytelling project that I'm in the midst of now. It really comes from that, because I would have these experiences of spending time with folks, and like I say, wanting to share those stories with others, because when you connect with somebody, yeah, it's not always around the difficulty. It's like, oh, we have some things in common. Oh, you like poetry, I like poetry. Um, that's a hilarious story. I've never lived through something like that. I don't know what I would do in that situation.
Right.
I'm very impressed by what you would do. Hmm.
Um, how do you, another one is like on the same vein is how do you stay grounded when you witness injustice up close and so often? I guess we just answered that question really. Is that the
So,
good stuff is what we're here for, but when there's injustices and whatnot, I guess that would be the up to the reason why we have coping mechanisms.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I would like to say that I've handled those situations of being frustrated or angry with injustice. That I've handled those well all the time, and I haven't. I mean, you get angry, you have feelings, you
Yeah,
you know.
sometimes like, how are you supposed to handle things you've never had to deal with before,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Now, those are significant things, and I think bringing this back to how does healing start? It starts within community, support, and so for
What does
me,
it look like? What does healing look like? Does it have a face?
That's that's a good question. I mean, when we start talking about this, faces come to mind for me, of individuals, and so I think that part of this is those individual stories. I can't say blanket, do this, and this, and things are going to get better, or anything like that. But I can look at, and I can listen to folks that have experienced healing, and listen to what their stories are telling me, and
That's
and that
right.
can be useful. Yeah.
That's right. Being an ear very often in a community is all that matters. Is that you're an ear.
Yeah, that whole business of like storytelling and deep listening. We talk about those things, the way we talk about poetry or something that, it's nice to have that, but do you really need poetry for something? This storytelling and deep listening, if I look over the years that I've been involved in the community, those are pieces that have made a substantial difference, because people who are struggling have often, been dismissed, labeled, diminished in some fashion, and just the act of listening. I remember there's a guy that was one of the peacemakers, and he said the greatest gift that one individual can give to another is to listen that person into being, into existence. And
Wow.
and that's a powerful thing when you feel like you're disappearing, you're just a number. The stigma in the community has pushed you away, and you feel you are worthless. To have someone listen to you and say, it matters what happened to you when you were a child. It matters what you love to do.
That's
Um,
incredible, David.
mhm, mhm.
Wow. And I was just gonna, you hit it right bang on. My next question was, what responsibility do we have? And I'll include me in that as well. What's our responsibility when documenting someone else's truth?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. To work with another person, ethically and that kind of thing. When I left my work at Greenwood Coalition last year, one of my goals, I knew that I had enjoyed doing, or I've been lured into, is oral history kind of work. Listening to and recording stories with people in different ways for a number of years, and so I decided that I was going to dig in and pursue that a little bit and figure out how to do that well, because you can do harm to people in the way that we interact, and people can be exploited, have been exploited, and so through that I was connected with a woman in Ireland, actually in Achill Island in Ireland, who has been a professor of oral history for many years, and so she's become kind of a mentor to me, and so we've had
Wow.
these back and forth bits about how
You're
do we
pen
do
pals.
this? Yeah, and so one of the ways that helps in entering into people's stories and how do we handle them is doing them together. And so the current project that I'm working on, I talk to each individual about seeing this as co-authoring of a little biography of theirs, and we both have some input. I have a role, they have a role, but the ongoing use of that and what form it shows up in is an ongoing conversation that they're empowered in, and we both get something from the process. We both have some control over the process, and I think those things are important.
Very much so. Having a team, having maybe even a team, even a small one, is a really, instead of thinking that you have to do this on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there's a and just yeah, listening and recognizing the imbalance of power for one thing. I live in a house that I mostly own, and I know where I'm going to sleep tonight, and a few things like that.
Yeah.
And somebody, some of the people, are still
I like that
living
you
in the
said
street.
mostly owned.
Yeah, yeah, mostly owned. I still have high hopes of being middle class someday, but you know, but whatever level I'm at, I know that some of the folks that I'm interviewing are in a much more precarious situation, and so not taking advantage of that, and making sure that this is what people really want to do. In this oral history work, people haven't been paid to do this work, and
Yes.
that's there's some layers to that as well. Documentary work versus research, and if somebody paid, and how does that affect the answers, and etc. I mean, I buy people lots of coffee and lunches and things like that, but for this project, it was important that it was voluntary, that these people want to tell their own story.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now, David. The ins and outs of creating a documentary. I recently joined. I don't know if you did your due diligence on me or not, but I'm recently a film school student
Okay, no,
at
I didn't know that. So
Toronto
cool.
Film School. I'm in the writing for film and television
Mm, mm,
course, and it's really happening for me. And one of the things I want to do upon before I finish is to gather together what it takes to do a documentary on my experiences,
mhm,
uh, or rather my what's the word, my perception of my experiences, because it
mhm,
may not be the same story that other people have about me that I have.
mhm,
So yeah, and you did bring up a couple of times poetry, and I think that that's one of the ways that we actually met is through poetry groups.
mhm,
And what I'm doing with my poetry now is, and I've been a poet before I was anything else, not a comedian, not an actor, a musician, whatever, a writer in general. The poetry came first, and I'm thinking of using my stockpile of poetry to create short films.
mhm.
So, and with my portfolio after film school, it's going to be a poetry laden short film portfolio. So
I love that. I think, I mean, what led me to my current project was that question of how do we take these experiences that people are having that aren't understood by other people, and how do, what creative way can
I
we
think that's the answer
get this
is
conversation
poetry.
going? Yeah,
Yeah, poetry
absolutely.
is the catalyst for
Hmm.
that. Yeah,
Poetry is a distillation of thoughts and experiences, and
distillation. I like that word.
yeah, it can be, it gets to the essence of some things, and that essence or that distillation can be passed on to others, and so
Absolutely.
approaching it poetically is a great idea.
I'm gonna kind of have you answer some funny and warm questions. I think we've covered our the unhoused situation and realize that I think with unhoused is just we've just got to be there and be there and listen to their stories. I
Yeah,
think
that's the
is
key piece. When the solution, the structural solution, et cetera, isn't obvious, just don't abandon people just because we
it's
don't have a
that is
solution.
the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Actually, what's the strangest place you've ever found yourself saying, "Oh no, I need to write this down"? You have anything like that?
I feel like my whole life is that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So so I'll
I carry a pen and pad with me.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for me, poetry became, a place to park things that didn't have another parking place. I don't know what to do with this story.
Maybe it can turn into a poem somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I remember, traveling in Spain a bunch of years ago when I was like I don't know, 19 or 20 or something like that. I had a friend over there.
Last year.
Yeah, last year. Yeah, yeah, last year, and ending up like not. It's all about it's all about connections, and how do we get to places. And anyway, the guy that I was traveling there with, he knew a bunch of people that were Romani people. They call them Gitano in Spain in Spanish, and over here people still call them gypsies. And anyway, that's complicated, the language, but Romani people.
Yeah.
And so I ended up, and I was a big fan of Django Reinhardt, the guitar player that invented what they call gypsy jazz back in the 30s and
Okay.
40s, and so I remember things like ending up in a living room full of Romani people, and like
Wow.
12 people had guitars, and that what they call gypsy jazz is rooted in flamenco and that kind of thing, and just being in a place where, okay, this, I have no idea how I got here. This is incredible, what's happening. And it's like every time you have one of these experiences, and I've had them in this community too, where I have a glimpse through a window into something so
Soul of
different.
some
Yeah,
other,
the
yeah.
soul of some other person, and and I've had those experiences often when when doing outreach work and encountering people, in encampments in various places, in difficult kinds of distress. Seeing what happens in that place is not something that I could imagine from my comfortable living room. And you have a different kind of understanding when you have those little glimpses. And yeah, so sometimes they make those into poems.
Wow. And that's it. Like once again, poetry comes into the mix as a solution.
Mm.
I think we're good. I think this has gone relatively well. I just for some reason I ended up for film school watching The Big Lebowski this morning,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like,
Never a wrong
man,
thing to do for breakfast.
well, and how ridiculous the whole movie is, and like there is a lot of Romana in The Big Lebowski. Just studying it, it was weird because normally I look to movies as entertainment instead of educational. As an oral historian, have you ever pressed record at the exact wrong moment and captured something completely ridiculous?
Um, yeah, yeah, that's an interesting question about when you press record and when you don't, and
Or should we
when
just record the whole thing and then edit it afterwards? I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, so I've tended to do that. I would say that my bigger regret is going into a situation where somebody says, "I want to tell you something off the record first," and me going along with that. That's happened a couple of times, and I think now what I would do is say, "Okay, let's just understand what we're doing here. We're recording this. You have control over this, and this is not in relation to this recent project, but." What happens is often that's the most important piece of the whole thing that ties together the whole story,
It
and we,
does.
we
Yeah, it
didn't
ties
record
everything
that.
together, but she does, but they
Yeah,
don't want that to get
and
out.
one situation that has come to mind for me, and that person has now been dead for 8 years, and I have this recording that just started a little bit too late to offer something really important, but yeah, what's recorded and what's not. I mean, we show up, we do our best, we try to figure that out, and I think what's important is that we're listening to each other and that we're having this moment.
That's great. I mean, like that's it, right? Like as opposed to anything that can come out of your mouth. Um, I've been at both ends of that spectrum, is saying the wrong thing as well as recording the wrong thing. So, all right. I think we're good. I wanted to stick to the light and funny stuff, but we hit it from both sides, David. Welcome to the Snackable Mental Health community. Follow
Thank
us
you.
on YouTube, so please subscribe, and please come and listen to David Sheffield, an incredible human being and a wonderful soul just to know. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, thank you.
we
That's terrific. Great
it,
conversation.
if I can check on you in 6 months' time, and we can have the same discussion, or we can add to our discussion in about 6 months. I'm asking people who come on now uh, to talk to them in 6 months and see if
For sure.
anything's
Yeah, yeah,
changed
yeah,
in their process. Thank
yeah.
you so much, David.
Yeah, no, thank you. This is great. Appreciate what you're doing and wish you well with things.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Okay, we'll see you. Bye-bye.